right now we do have our Knicks beat reporter for the New York Post, the great Stefan Bondy, who was just there at the press conference, asked a couple of questions. Tarrytown. Steph, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on?
How you doing, man? First of all, let's just get quickly. What were your thoughts on the press conference? How did you feel Mike Brown presented to the media and the questions he answered and everything? How do you think he did?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a very polished person. He was, pretty much what we expected. He's a veteran coach. He's a veteran in front of a microphone, and he said he didn't reveal much, but he said what he needed to say, basically.
Yeah, he did. He did say what he needed to say. I don't think there was anything like too earth shattering. What did you make of? Because he was asked a question. I can't remember who asked the question. He was asked a question about his style of play. And he talked a lot about evolution in this press conference, Steph. And we went through this the last time we talked to you about his journeys and his stops. Do you expect the Knicks to be a more balanced team under Mike Brown? Or do you think that's something we can see?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the goal. I think that when you're selling Mike Brown, you're selling the idea that he came in as a defensive-minded guy, and he kind of in his last stop, I think he learned a lot. First of all, when he was an assistant in Golden State, he learned about collaboration. He learned about offensively how to create a dynamic offense, and then he applied that to Sacramento. So I think when you're selling Mike Brown, you're selling that evolution, and he talked about that a lot. That's part of his resume.
That's a huge part of his resume.
Bonnie, do you think that was part of the plan for Mike Brown today? Because it felt like an emphasis. It felt like he wanted to go in and really talk up evolving the offense, so to speak, and pushing pace and things of that nature. It sounds like this was what he wanted to be the message today more than anything else.
Yeah. When he brought up the word evolution, I believe I'm going to have to listen back again. I believe that was unprompted the first time, and then he was asked about it. And offensively, you're right. I think I can't remember what the question was, but he brought up the pace stuff himself. So when somebody comes in with the idea of, hey, this is what I want to talk about, and they discuss that with a question, then that's certainly something that they wanted to emphasize. I think that was part of his agenda today.
For people who may overreact to this, so to speak, one way or the other, what could you say to them in terms of how much should people actually take away from this, given that it's an introductory press conference and it could be a word salad or it could be things that matter? How much would you take away from this?
I don't think I'd take away much. I'm trying to think back on something that he said where I'm like, wow, that was a real revelation, and I can't come up with something right now. So I think overreacting to anything he said would be a mistake, but it was kind of what we expected. I think he didn't want to talk about Thibodeau and following up on Thibodeau. He didn't want to talk about. I asked him a question like, what happened in Sacramento? Why did they decide to move on from me? He didn't want to talk about that. So, sure, he had his top talking points, and that's how press conferences go a lot of the time. It wasn't like he came in and was like, banging the podium and saying, I'm going to win a championship. That wasn't on the agenda, and he had a perfectly professional press conference.
It was perfectly professional. I don't know. I'm curious as to your takeaway, Steph. Do you get the sense that he understands the pressure that is here and what we talked about? We talked about finals or bust last week when you were on with us. Do you get the sense that he understands what he's facing here?
Yeah. I mean, I think we talked about this before, but he's somebody who understands pressure about as well as anybody, because when you're coaching LeBron James, when he's threatening to leave the city of Cleveland, that was about as pressure-packed as you can have in terms of a situation as a head coach. So he's used to it. He's been around winning organizations. He's won championships as an assistant coach. He understands what pressure is. So he's not. That's part of the reason why they tried to. They wanted to hire an experienced coach, somebody who's used to this. So I think he understands. And I think, that was a big reason why they hired him.
Yeah, that feels like a huge part of why that went down with him. And he has been in a lot of pressure situations, as you've mentioned here. Bonnie, what can you also tell us about the staff? You had an article that came out today that people should check out about the rest of the coaching staff and filling it out, and that Rick Brunson will have a role on this coaching staff, not as high as associate head coach as some people might have thought. But what can you tell us about Brown filling out the rest of the staff?
Yeah, so in my article, I detailed how Rick was the lead assistant last season. He will not be the lead assistant anymore. And, as I wrote in the story, he was on board with that decision. There were a lot of distractions throughout the season that related to him. And it was kind of viewed, organizationally, like it's just best to kind of push those aside and take a step back and let Mike Brown hire his associate head coach or lead assistant. To be clear, I don't know if the lead assistant will get the associate head coach title, but I believe he will. And they will be bringing back a few assistants from last season. From what I heard or expected to, it's Darren Erman, Mo Cheeks, and Bryant, the big man coach. So, Mike Brown talked today about filling out his staff and getting these guys in. So he'll be making some hires as well. And, then it's off to Summer League.
Is James Borrego in play at all for associate head coach?
Yeah.
Brian, we're on the same page.
I believe that he is in play, but there's some skepticism that New Orleans will let him out of his contract because he is an associate head coach in New Orleans. So it would be a lateral move, and a lot of times the permission doesn't get granted in those situations.
Understood.
Should people read into the Rick Brunson piece and him being demoted, I guess, to use the term?
Read into it how?
Like, does it ultimately matter that he's a holdover? Because some people are like, oh, is Jalen going to be happy about him being demoted? Is there going to be, him being a holdover? Is that going to be something that causes friction because he doesn't have as high of a position as last year? I don't think so, but is that something that, we might be hearing about later in the year, so to speak?
I don't think so. I think, like I said, Rick was, from what I heard, Rick was on board with this. So, I think he became the lead assistant last year after Johnny Bryan left, and he wasn't the lead assistant the 2 seasons prior. So he's kind of taking demotion back to what he was before. So, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. He's already kind of served in that role as an assistant in years prior where it was fine with Jalen. So I don't see it being an issue.
Is there a timeline that Mike Brown or the Knicks want their coaching staff to be finalized by?
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see how that plays out. A couple more things before we let you go, Steph, because we know Summer League is up next for you. We did learn, and you were the one on this past weekend, that Gershon Yabusele took a little bit less than the full TMLE here. So the Knicks do have an opportunity where they could sign another veteran player. Do you expect the Knicks to do that this rest of this offseason? How do you see things shaking out? Do you expect them to sign another veteran player?
Yeah, I do expect them to sign another veteran player, and I expect it to be a ball handler.
Okay, expect it to be a ball handler. Interesting. Would any names that you could be comfortable sharing? Could Malcolm Brogdon, one of those guys, in the mix for that? Are we talking Malcolm, Ben Simmons? Does he count too?
I could. I'm thinking about what I can say.
Sorry, Steph. Your reaction was similar when somebody asked me that the other day.
All right, so to be honest, I'm not going to rule out Ben Simmons, and I think Malcolm Brogdon is somebody to put on the list.
Okay.
Would you rule out Russell Westbrook?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. From the first day of free agency,
once you get to Ben Simmons, you're like a half step away from Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I know. It's true that they lobbied interest in Ben Simmons. I don't know how high the level of interest is, but it's true that they talked to his representation.
Well, you know what? On that note, Steph, if they do add Ben Simmons, that is a third non-shooter on the roster. Does that fit into the way Mike Brown would want to play, or are they looking at him as sort of a defensive specialist, come and grab some boards, also add a little bit of playmaking? I'm wondering if that fits into how he wants to play. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I don't know how. My guess, this is just a guess. My guess is that Mike Brown would not want Ben Simmons on his team. That's just a total guess. To me, like there's the shooting element that you mentioned, the fact that he's kind of scared to play offense, and there's the idea that he also decided that he was going to sit out the whole season and not play basketball. So listen, I don't know what's going on in Mike Brown's head. I can't tell you that he likes or dislikes Ben Simmons, but that would be my guess.
He's also elite at driving the ball past half court and then passing it to somebody else once he gets to the 3-point line.
Yeah, and
So
if you want
to increase the pace, from up into the 3-point line, Ben Simmons is your guy.
Yeah, and he also, like, I've watched enough Nets games where he would like drive to the paint and then just turn around and like not even look at the basket because he wanted no part of that. But listen, he's obviously is a top-notch defender. He's obviously has top-level size and athleticism and speed, and in transition, he's a guy you want. And as Jared Dudley once said, this is when Ben Simmons was at his peak, which was hilarious. He's an all-star in transition, but in the half court, he's just average. And I would say he's less than average in the half court.
Yo, that is quite accurate. I can't even deny that. One of the last thing for me, Bondy. A lot of things that Mike Brown talked about. I know we had the buzzword that we had from him a couple of times through this about evolution, but he talked about the process. He talked about communication, other buzzwords we kind of hear a lot from coaches. How much do you think he is going to be able to communicate his message through his own evolution through this team, and how soon does it start? He said he's already started reaching out to players, but how do you think he's going to be effective in his communication style with this team that maybe might differ from Tom Thibodeau?
Yeah, I think that's a strength of his. I think, in a lot of ways, he's Tibbsian in the, like, he's hard on guys. He's willing to hold guys accountable. I think he does that even more so than Tibbs. But, I think that he understands the importance of communication and relationships. And he did talk a lot about working with the front office today. I thought that was another point of emphasis. So I think there'll be a kind of collaboration on that part. So I think that's something else to take away from this press conference.
Gotcha. Steph, before we let you go, what are you looking forward to in Summer League? A couple of young players playing there. What are you looking forward to when you head out to Vegas?
Yeah, I mean, they got a lot of young guys that were second-round picks last year, and they had the second-round pick this year, and the guy that they acquired for Karl Anthony Towns, James Najee, is that how you pronounce his name?
Correct. Yeah, Najee.
Yeah. So I've never seen him play. I'm interested in seeing him play. I'm interested in seeing the development of Pacome Dadier, the development of Ariel Hook-Porty, who hasn't played really since undergoing the surgery for the torn meniscus. So I'm interested to see where he's at. Kevin McCullough, he's a guy that we didn't get to see much of because of that knee issue. He's a guy that I'm looking forward to. Tyler Kolek. So they got a lot of intriguing guys. I don't think many of them will be actually in the rotation next season, but there is the opportunity for at least one or two of them to crack the regular rotation in the NBA.
Yeah, that's something Knicks fans have wanted to see. Steph, we appreciate the time. Sadly, I will not be with you out in Vegas this year, but stay cool. We'll talk soon. We'll talk from Vegas soon. Thank you, my friend.
All right, man.
Later. That's Stefan Bondy, beat reporter for the New York Post, covering the Knicks. He was up there in Tarrytown with us live following the introductory press conference.